When you're sad and blue and everything is putting you down, you know the world keeps spinning around. You know you're not alone.
Yes, with MS, the world keeps spinning around, but you're not alone. Welcome to the 10 Minutes for MS podcast, in which we share information about MS in just 10 minutes.
In this episode, I'm glad to welcome Dr. Christianson, a naturopathic doctor, best-selling author, and a thyroid expert.
Hello, doctor. Welcome to our show, 10 Minutes for MS podcast.
Hello, Ritu. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, doctor. Doctor, you are a naturopathic physician specializing in natural endocrinology with a focus on thyroid disorders. You are also a New York Times best-selling author, and one of the most famous book written by you is The Thyroid Reset Diet, which is really, really interesting. And I myself am reading it and I love it. So, doctor, firstly, thank you for writing such a great book. And can you please tell us what inspired you to study about thyroid and write this book?
Well, inspired about thyroid, when I started practicing, that was the early 90s. And there was a big, big gap between what was being done in natural medicine and in conventional medicine for thyroid care. And I thought that each side had some strong points, each side had some shortcomings, and I tried to figure out, what was the best data between the both of those. So that was what got me going in thyroid care. As far as this book, I'd already been practicing for about 15 years before a lot of these concepts became clear to me. I'd known forever about iodine being related to thyroid function, and I'd known that too much can be dangerous. But the new data is that for some people, even a little bit too much is dangerous, and that lowering it can be an opportunity to heal the thyroid. And I saw just such striking data about how dramatic the benefits could be for so many people, and no one else was talking about this. So I had to make it more public.
Thank you, doctor. So, yes, but when you said you had to make it public, and I'm sure people like me are actually wanting to know more about thyroid. And thanks to you, you have been making it public and, available to so many people to know what actually thyroid is, instead of just Googling the way people do, which can cause troubles at the same time. So we need to have a journal like this.
Well, thyroid disease is very common for those with MS. There's a big rate of overlap, and we see this both in terms of Hashimoto's and in Graves' disease. The rates of these diseases have been about tripling over the last few decades, and they're even more common in those who do have MS. So it's very relevant in the community.
Yes, so that was my question actually, that why is it that it is 3 times more prevalent in people with autoimmune disease like MS than the general population? Is there any kind of reason behind it?
Well, it seems that the propensity towards autoimmune disease makes one prone to have multiple types. So that's the biggest single answer. We don't know exactly why that is. We have a lot of theories and ideas, but it seems that with thyroid disease, the biggest drivers are some genetic susceptibility, female gender, age, and then iodine exposure. So some of the genetic elements that can give rise to that are shared by those who are prone to develop MS.
So, doctor, when we know that there are certain factors which can lead more to thyroid, can thyroid be controlled? So, for example, if someone is leading a healthy lifestyle, taking good care of their health, workouts and proper meals, and take proper intake of iodine, can that be controlled beforehand? Or if it has to happen, it will happen?
Well, yeah. So we know that there's susceptibility, but once there is susceptibility, the biggest controllable driver is iodine exposure. So if someone has more than is safe, far too little can be a problem, but it's rarely a problem for adults, and it's rarely a problem in the modern world. But for those prone to thyroid disease, a little bit too much can be. So yeah, the first thing for preventing from developing thyroid disease can be avoiding exposure to excessive amounts.
Okay. So, doctor, so what should be the normal range of thyroid when can someone know that they need to start a treatment?
Yeah, so there's actually two different things. So there's like a normal range, a good range, when someone should start treatment. They're all different things, and I'll address those for sure. And to back up a little bit, the initial test that's commonly done is called the TSH. That's the thyroid stimulating hormone. That's the pituitary telling the thyroid to work. It's important to understand that this is a backward number. Like golf, it's good to get a low score, and then basketball, it's good to get a high score. So this is a case to where high score means less. The higher the number is, the more your thyroid is underactive. So normal laboratory reference ranges are between about 0.4 and 4.5.
Right.
And when someone's above that, their thyroid is slowing. Now, many people on the high side of normal still may have some early issues. So there's a point somewhere around 2 or 2.5. The further someone gets above that, the more likely they are to develop thyroid disease. That's not to say that everyone above 2.5 will benefit from thyroid medication. There are other ways to help, but it does mean that the further they get above that, the more likely this could be affecting them.
All right. So you mean to say if someone has above 4, that means they should start their medications?
Well, so a little more depth. So that's the most common first-line test. Ideal testing would be more comprehensive than that. It would ideally look at also the hormones the thyroid itself makes, which we measure as T4 and T3. And it would also look to see if the immune system is attacking the thyroid. We call that anti-thyroid peroxidase antibodies and anti-thyroid globulin antibodies. So a good panel would have all of that. Now, when someone's TSH is elevated and their T4 is low, there's a lot of times in which they can benefit from medication. Even in those cases, a high percent of people can reverse the disease through diet only.
Okay.
And when they're at earlier stages, say the T4 is not low, but the TSH has gone up, then there's often not benefit from medication. And there's still really good opportunity for repairing from lifestyle only, from diet change.
All right. So it is also seen, doctor, that many people who are taking MS medications, some of the DMTs itself can cause thyroid in a person.
Yeah.
So if someone is having a DMT and it's suiting a person and has been having it since years, but has started developing thyroid problems or the levels are going up, what would you recommend in this kind of case?
Well, the exciting thing is that studies have shown that 80% of people roughly can reverse thyroid disease just through diet. So that's really the first line that I start with. And with diet, all facets of a healthy diet are important for all facets of health. But in this case, the one thing that makes the biggest difference is just the iodine intake. So in the book, I outline how to know what your iodine exposure is. And there's two big zones I tell people about. One zone is a little broader, and that's to keep your thyroid stable. If you're already better, it can keep it there. If you're fine, it can keep you from getting disease. And the narrower, lower window is to reverse active disease. So if someone's gland is slipping off, they can just go to that lower iodine threshold, stabilize things, and then have a broader range of safe iodine for maintenance.
Okay. So, doctor, if you had to recommend any kind of particular diet for thyroid, what would it be?
Well, just that, in long term, people should eat healthy foods for a lot of reasons. But for reversing thyroid disease, many of the studies, for example, one study showed that people that had thyroid disease for about 4 years, their average TSH score was 14.1. They were severely hypothyroid. Yeah. They did one thing and one thing only. They didn't go on medication. They didn't get healthier in general. All they did was lower their iodine to below 100 micrograms per day. Within 2 months, 78% of people were completely cured. They had totally normal thyroid function. Now, the remaining group, there was many to where on investigation, they didn't hit their target. They didn't really reduce their iodine. So some didn't get better because they just didn't do it. So we put them aside. Another big group, they did get better, but they did not yet normalize. They were off by such big amounts that they were improving. Their TSH went from like 200 down to 20, but it wasn't yet normal. But those that did do the diet and failed to respond at all was less than 3% of people. So almost everyone who does do it can be cured or can get a lot better. And that's a strong statement, but that's backed by multiple human clinical studies.
Wow, actually, it's very interesting, how it's miraculous that how diet can actually help you in various ways. We say that MS can be managed with proper diet. Thyroid can also be managed with proper diet. It's very great to see. But doctor, I have a question here that there are a certain kind of food which is not good for MS, but it is good for thyroid, and vice versa. So that is the confusion that people, fall into. Should we just pay attention to thyroid at present, or just look at the chronic disease that they're already dealing with?
If someone's treating MS through diet, if they're on an AIP diet, for example, or a Walls diet, or a Swank diet even, there are many easy ways to still target an iodine intake. So you can do both. And the biggest single factor for thyroid function by far is just iodine status. So yeah, on any kind of a diet, you can easily modify that to make it thyroid friendly. And I do talk about that in the book as well, for those who are already on a particular diet, how they can make easy modifications to stay within those guidelines and also help it heal their thyroid.
All right. So doctor, how can one control the iodine intake every day?
It's really a matter of being aware of the big outlying sources. Easiest thing is just scour your supplements, make sure none of those are giving you iodine that you could avoid. Take a peek at cosmetics, and the book talks through how to find hidden ingredients. Even natural cosmetics can have a fair amount. Then we think about salt, using iodine-free salt. Kosher salt is a really good option that way. Iodine is in high amounts in processed grains and also in dairy foods. Many people on different MS diets are avoiding those food categories already, so there's a head start. Mm-hmm. Then we think about egg yolks being a source, not egg whites. Mm-hmm. And then seafood. There are some good options of seafood that are lower in iodine, but that does take some thought. So then sea vegetables. But those are the big food categories one needs to think through, and there's lots of good options even in those categories.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, doctor, for your amazing knowledge that you shared with us today about thyroid. This was a very, very informative session for us here. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, warriors, for being with us. I hope you found this session useful. We will be back again next week with another informative session. So don't forget to subscribe and reserve just 10 minutes for MS.
No, you're not alone.